From being known as where their tracks are this way, to the land that nobody wanted, to what some consider the crown jewel of the southern Appalachians, Shining Rock Wilderness has always captured people's eyes and imagination. Shining Rock is in Pisgah National Forest, located 30 minutes southeast of Waynesville. It's named for the large quartz formation that can be easily seen. It is huge, remote, and the biggest wilderness area in North Carolina. Shining Rock Wilderness can fit Cullowhee 8 times over. Shining Rock also seems bigger than it is because it has a neighboring wilderness called Middle Prong Wilderness that's only separated by a highway. It has 5 peaks that are higher than 6,000 feet, the tallest of which being Cold Mountain at 6,030 feet. Most of the mountains are steep, rugged, and hard to navigate. These woods have no direct access by car. Instead, you need to hike through other public lands. You can get to Shining Rock Wilderness in 2 different spots with 3 different trails. You can get to Shining Rock Wilderness through Black Balsam by taking the Art Loeb Trail or Ivester's Gap, or you can take Big East Fork Pigeon River. Despite being hard to access, Shining Rock Wilderness is a popular site for backpackers and day hikers alike. The area is also popular with photographers and stargazers for its beauty and remoteness. This area is dog-friendly, and there are also a couple trails that horses can be on. There are a lot of gorgeous things to be seen here and a lot of fun things to do. If you want to view streams and waterfalls, take Big East Fork River Trail or Little East Fork River Trail. Both follow the rivers of the same name and have beautiful views. Big East also has great fishing, and Little East can be traveled by horses. Or follow the ridgeline that the area is famous for by taking Old Butt Knob Trail, or challenge yourself with the strenuous Cold Mountain Trail that also takes you to the mountaintops. Shining Rock Wilderness is gorgeous when it comes to plants that can be found there. There are amazing shrubs and wildflowers on many of the trails. There are massive blueberry fields and evergreens of spruce and fir sprinkled throughout. There's also cool wildlife too. It's a good spot to see hawk migrations. Come see the Harris hawk, the broad-winged hawk, the red-tailed hawk, and many others. There's also a lot of cool salamanders, like the Blue Ridge two-line salamander, the southern gray-cheeked salamander, and the black-belly salamander. Shining Rock is a great place to see grassland and shrubland, which is great because it's becoming scarce in the forests of southern Appalachian. These areas are important to protect because these types of lands are vital to many life cycles of many animals that live in this area. Evergreen forests, like the spruce fir forest that grows here, is also vital for a similar reason. Salamanders are hypersensitive to the environment, so they can warn us of any pollution that could potentially harm other animals or plants. A wilderness is a type of protection that protects animals and plants by not allowing anything to be managed or controlled within the area. This allows for these animals and plants to have the sanctuary that they need. Shining Rock Wilderness has a cool natural and cultural history. According to the Cherokee creation myth, Shining Rock is a holy land known as this word and translates to where their tracks are this way. Shining Rock is where Juailuk-Kalu and his children lived. Juailuk-Kalu is a giant whose name is often anglicized to Judaculla. In the early days, the area was famous for having spruce, fir, and hemlock that were over 100 feet tall. Because of this, it was bought up for logging in 1906, but it proved not to be very successful and was sold in 1911. Then in 1925, there was a big fire. This, and the logging not being very easy to manage, made the land become known as the land that nobody wanted. In 1935, during the height of the Great Depression, the government bought it up in order to expand Pisgah National Forest. Then, in 1942, the area was racked with an extreme fire, permanently altering the landscape from what used to be a massive evergreen forest to now shrubby and grassy areas. This fire had its upside, though, because it took the barely visible quartz outcropping and made it very prominent. That quartz captured people's hearts and imaginations, with people falling in love with this area because of the gorgeous quartz. When the government passed the Wilderness Act in 1964, Shining Rock became one of the 50 areas of land to be protected under this act, and one of only 3 in the East Coast. Then, in 1984, Shining Rock was expanded and Middle Prong Wilderness was created, giving it the acreage it has today. There has been some political controversy around the point of wildernesses. Some people believe it's the only way to protect natural spaces, and it's more important than ever, whereas others say that the standard of wilderness is too rigid and that public lands should be more flexible so that they can be managed. At heart, both sides want what's best for the ecosystem. However, people can't seem to agree on what the best thing to do is. Just because there's some controversies around wilderness doesn't mean that it should stop anyone from enjoying Shining Rock. But there are some issues that you should be made aware of before you visit Shining Rock Wilderness. First, there have been some black bear problems. Because of this, bear canisters are required if you decide to camp in Shining Rock Wilderness. Also, since it's a wilderness and human intervention is minimally allowed, there are some very poor trail markers and many confusing spots within Shining Rock Wilderness, including the infamous Shining Rock Gap, a large field that has many trails heading from it. To avoid getting lost, make sure you have an up-to-date map and compass, and you know how to use it before heading out. There's also been some erosion problems, so be sure to follow the Leave No Trace guidelines that are included on the official map of Shining Rock. Doing this will help keep the trails a little bit better maintained and ready to use for the next person who comes. It should also be known that because of Shining Rock's bad history with fires and the lack of management within a wilderness means that you cannot have a fire in the area. It puts you and others at risk. Other things that are not allowed are groups larger than 10 and bicycles. Overall, Shining Rock is a truly amazing place to recreate. I'm planning to go backpacking there soon. I hope to see you all in the crown jewel of the Southern Appalachians.